So in the last video I talked about how I made the blade, and there's a link in the description if you're interested, but this one's going to be about the making of the handle scale fixtures and the handle scales themselves. The scales are removable, so there's no glue holding anything together. It's just 832 low profile socket head cap screws threaded into spacers. The spacers are a 1/4 inch wide, so they stick out on either side of the blade, and I use them to locate the handle scale accurately against the profile. The screws are 18H stainless steel low profile socket head cap screws with 832 thread, and the female threaded spacers are also stainless. They're a 1/4 inch in diameter and a 1/4 inch long. The handle scale material itself is a forest green G10. I chose a 3/8 thickness because I like a beefier handle. It comes in a 5x12 tile sort of thing that I had to cut up into 6 different pieces for the 3 knives I'm making. The handle's a pretty tricky shape in that I can't really cheat by holding it up against something flat or square. It doesn't have any flat sides, and I wanted access to all of it because it's kind of a 3D sweepy shape. So I thought holding it from the bottom, leaving the top free of any kind of clamps or bolts would be the best idea. This is also kind of where it's starting to become apparent how many air and gut videos I've watched. A few quick little shots here of the actual fixture machining itself. The fixture is aluminum. I did most of it with 3/8 3-flute aluminum end mill. The facing here is done with the Tormach Superfly, and I cut some pretty deep counterbores in the backside so I could fit a bolt and a washer in case I had too much thread sticking out the other side. So to hold the scale from the bottom, I'd have to put in some threaded holes and locating features. I'm using a pretty tight location because in this setup I'm also going to cut the counterbores that the spacers are going to use to locate the handle against the knife blade, and I'm putting in the clearance holes for the 832 socket head cap screws. I've only got about 10th thou radially in the clearance holes, so those got to be tight too. Here's what the G10 looks like after the first stop, bolted down to the fixture and ready for machining. On the right side you can see little dowel pins sticking out that locate the stock. M6 screws hold it down from the other side. I'm in a little bit of a funny spot. I really enjoy making these fixtures because they show me how accurate and repeatable the process can be, but I'm not really going for a production run. So there's still a little bit of manual locating every time I put a fixture on the machine. The overall plan for machining was to 2D kind of contour them out, rough 3D machine them, and then finish them off with some surfacing tool paths. I used a morphed spiral to get in here, and I think it worked out pretty well. This is the ramped contouring, cutting out the 2D shape, and then some 3D adaptive, and finally finishing it off with that 3D morphed spiral toolpath. The G10 machines really nicely. I can take a 40 or 50 thou step over at full depth with this little 4-flute 1/4 inch end mill, and I'm running everything at 3,000 RPM. This stuff fluffs up and gets airborne pretty easily, so I've got to wear a respirator when dealing with it. This is the finish of the G10 right off the machine. It's sort of white and chalky. I put a tiny bit of WD-40 on a rag and kind of buff it into the handle. It brings out the true color and sort of exposes that cool grain in the material. So the knife on the bottom's had its handle treated with a little bit of WD-40, and the top 2 knives have handle scales with a finish that's right off the machine. The middle knife's handle's a little bit darker because I was handling it for a day. Anytime you touch the G10 right off the machine, it tends to darken and discolor, and I think that WD-40 or maybe a little bit of light oil just kind of speeds up the process. So there's still a little bit of work left. None of these knives are heat treated, hand finished, or sharp yet. I also applied a cold blue on one of the knives to try to gain some corrosion resistance. These are 1095 knives and they will rust if left untreated. So if you like this one, stay tuned. There's a little bit more to come.